Rian Johnson is something of a controversial figure. The director received a load of hate for Star Wars The Last Jedi back in 2017, one of the most divisive Star Wars movies ever made, and the two movies that he's made after The Last Jedi are actually pretty good. Yeah, the Knives Out duology, soon to be a trilogy, are arguably the best modern whodunit movies that we've seen in a while. Stemmed from Johnson's love of Agatha Christie stories, the movies follow Detective Benoit Blanc, Johnson's homage to classic Christie detectives, who's sexier than Poirot, but not as sexy as Miss Marple. He keeps a good balance. I watched these movies again recently and thought they were great, but then I started to think, have I been a little harsh on The Last Jedi? Because if you watch these movies, you notice that they actually have a lot of similarities with The Last Jedi. So in this video, I want to discuss the conventions that Johnson uses in his storytelling, why they work for me in the Knives Out movies, and how he uses them in The Last Jedi. Alright, let's start. Probably the thing that Johnson is well known for is his subversive writing. The term subverting expectations is cemented with Rian Johnson. He takes tropes and conventions of a particular genre and plays with them, even challenging them in his stories. In the case of the Knives Out movies, it's subverting the tropes of the murder mystery genre, a genre that I think lends itself very well to subversive writing. Knives Out subverts the genre by being a Holmes and Watson story, only this time Watson is the killer. Or so we think. We're led to believe that the narrative will be a standard whodunit, with the mysterious death of the victim, all of the interviews of the suspects, the quirky detective carefully examining the evidence, only for the narrative to completely change as it's revealed how the murder happened, and now we're rooting for the supposed killer to get away with it. We see how she tries to avoid suspicion from Detective Blanc as he inches closer and closer to the truth. This keeps us engaged with the story as the tension builds and the walls begin to slowly close on our protagonist. But wait, it turns out it is a whodunit story after all, and our Watson character is being framed this whole time. The genre flips back again, and we as the audience see how our protagonist has been manipulated from the start. We get the standard whodunit finale of the suspects gathered in a room and the genius detective explaining how the murder was done, except now we're even more intrigued because we've been led to believe this whole time that it was our protagonist who did it. This is just incredible writing that keeps the audience in suspense. And the same can be said for Glass Onion. The first half is structured similarly to some of the Poirot mysteries written by Agatha Christie. Our detective finds himself in a luxurious setting with a bunch of wealthy, important people who at first appear to love the rich magnate that brings them all together, only for the disdain and anger towards him to slowly bubble to the surface. Pretty standard stuff. Everyone has a motive, we have a suspected victim, it appears that there was an attempt on his life that backfired, which makes us believe that he is in fact the victim. But then halfway through, we flash back to when Detective Blanc got the invitation, and it completely recontextualizes the whole first half of the movie, making it less who would kill our suspected victim and more who would kill for him. And this keeps you engaged. You see how everything changes, such as motivations and intentions. With this new context, it's a brilliant way to keep you guessing. God, rich people are weird. Oh, speaking of which. As is the message with both Knives Out and Glass Onion, Rian Johnson has a lot to say about the rich, which kind of fits well with the whodunit genre. Most of Agatha Christie's mysteries are usually centered around selfish rich socialites who always seem so surprised that someone hated them enough to kill them.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
In the first movie, Johnson focuses on old money and nepotism. The story centers around the Thrombys, a wealthy family that comes off as loving and caring towards one another, but really the only thing keeping them together is the money, and without it they're bloody nothing. Every member of the family only has a successful career because of their father's money.
No, it's my company.
Right. Sorry.
I built my business from the ground up.
Yeah, my mother built her business from the ground up with $1 million loan from my grandfather.
And when their claim to his money is threatened, they show their true colors. While Glass Onion tackles new money, tech billionaires and their abuse of the power and influence that they have over the world. These Silicon Valley snake oil salesmen who present themselves as complicated geniuses looking to create a brighter and better world, but in reality are just pseudo-intellectuals who cause more harm than good. In both movies, the protagonist is a woman from humble origins who has to navigate herself around the bizarre world of the rich and powerful, and in the end, comes out on top. In Knives Out, we have Marta, a Latina nurse who cares for the Thrombey patriarch, Harlan, and seems to be the only person to actually care about him, who then inherits all of his wealth after his death, revealing the family's true nature as they do whatever they can to try and take it back from her. And in Glass Onion, we have Helen, the sister of a famous tech billionaire who was robbed of everything from her shithead partner Miles, and might have been murdered by one of his shithead followers. And while Helen is unable to take back what was stolen from her sister, she's still able to destroy Miles' legacy in the most explosive way possible. Both protagonists are truly good people who have to deal with rich snobs who only pretend to be good, and still find their way on top by being true to who they are and not playing the games that the 1% put in front of them.
You won, not by playing the game Harlan's way, but yours.
While Johnson's writing is criticized heavily by people online, I always find it weird when someone criticizes his visuals, because every one of his movies is gorgeous, from the camera angle, lighting, props, and color grading, working to get this distinct look for both movies. In Knives Out, it's to get this old-timey, warm, rustic look. The Thrombey mansion usually has this warm, autumny color palette to it, juxtaposed to the colder, grey color palette of the rest of the world, adding to the isolation of this house, and that it's the only haven that everyone's fighting to keep. And then in Glass Onion, where everything is bathed in yellow to depict the Greek island paradise that the movie is set in, and this time using lighting for narrative beats. Whereas in the day, the disruptors are putting on their best shit-eating smiles, and then at night, the truth comes out, and when the characters are in shadow, that's when their true natures are revealed.
Andy.
Yes, Andy.
Andy used to tell me the truth. Nobody does that now.
Rian Johnson is an incredible visual storyteller, and even if you don't like the movies, this is still something you can appreciate. So with my newfound respect for Rian Johnson's writing and directing, did this change my opinion of The Last Jedi? Yes, but not by much. My liking of this movie went from 10% to, 15? 20? Somewhere in that zone. The thing is, The Last Jedi has all of the traits I've spoken about in the Knives Out movies. Subversive writing, commentary on the 1%, and some very striking visuals. But a lot of these elements I still found to work against the movie, instead of strengthening it like they did with Knives Out. Rey's character arc that was established in The Force Awakens, learning to let go of the family that abandoned her and embracing this newfound family that did come back for her, is thrown away for a meta commentary on fan expectations. Finn trying to sacrifice himself to save his friends, capping off his arc from deserter running from the people who enslaved him to a hero willing to die for the ones who love him, is shortchanged by Rose saving him and leaving everyone else to die.
It's almost hurtful to me to watch her be so dumb.
The mystery of why the hero of the previous trilogy, who learned to look for the good in everyone even when they can't see it themselves, decided to exile himself to a remote planet, turns out to be that he lost all hope and abandoned his friends and his family to die on an island. The mystery of the leader of the First Order, this all-powerful Force user who came out of nowhere, doesn't matter.
Oh my god.
Compared to the Knives Out movies, these twists don't really work in my opinion. Instead of developing the character or the story, they kinda stop it dead in its tracks. While the twists in these movies change the narratives, Marta being revealed as the killer changes the story from a whodunit to a crime thriller, and then back to a whodunit. Andy being revealed to be her twin sister Helen completely changes the first half of Glass Onion. This makes us interested in how the finales are gonna play out, while Rey's big twist reveal about her parents just kinda stops her story, and she doesn't even have anywhere to go from here. Now, The Last Jedi also has commentary on the rich and powerful, just like the Knives Out movies. While those movies tackled old money and tech billionaires, The Last Jedi looks at war profiteering, and how the rich benefit from the suffering of others. Well, again, it doesn't really work here. While in those movies, the protagonist ends the story having beaten the rich snobs that look down on them, this just has Finn and Rose run these horse-like creatures through a city, something that will only set them back, a month at worst. And then there's this big speech Rose gives about war profiteering and how it destroys lives. to a child soldier who does not need to learn this lesson. Look, I've had a very complicated relationship with this movie for a very long time. When it first came out, I loved it, mostly because it was Star Wars and I just loved anything Star Wars. I was that kind of fan. And then I grew to hate it as I couldn't ignore the obvious problems I had with it any longer. And I'll admit, I kind of overcorrected on that part. But now, while I still don't like the movie, I can at least appreciate some of the things that it was trying to do. I can respect Rian Johnson's attempts to try and do something different with an old franchise. I don't think the Finn and Rose story worked at all, but I can understand the messages that Johnson was trying to convey with it. I think the Holdo and Poe rivalry is really forced and pointless, but I get the idea that Poe needs to learn to think about the bigger picture when it comes to war. And while I hated what he did with Luke, this scene is still a really good depiction of the Force, both in dialogue and in visuals.
What do you see?
Life. Death and decay that feeds new life.
Speaking of which, this is probably the most beautiful Star Wars movie out of the sequel trilogy. I love the setting of Crate with its red crystal surface that has a thin layer of salt over it, making it look like the planet is bleeding because of the effects of war. Love it or hate it, Canto Bight is still gorgeous, showing how the rich are tucked away in their cozy little paradise. And also this. Yeah, you can argue the logistics of it if you want, but this is still some of the most striking imagery you'll see in Star Wars. Honestly, while I still don't like The Last Jedi, I don't hate Rian Johnson. I may not like the creative choices he made, but it's not something that ruined my life. Rian Johnson is someone who makes movies his way, and that may not have personally worked for me in terms of Star Wars, but definitely worked for his other movies. He has a vision for how to write and shoot a story, and he sticks to it. Hell, I have defended Zack Snyder's DC movies, something that was equally divisive when it came to fans and caused a lot of hatred towards Snyder himself. So I understand where Johnson fans are coming from. It's not easy when something you enjoy is constantly shat on by others. You're allowed to not like The Last Jedi as much as you want, but calling a unique filmmaker a hack simply because you don't like one of his movies? It's a bit much. So Rian, I'm sorry. Keep doing what you're doing. Hey everyone, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and feel free to comment on what you think of the Knives Out movies, what you think of Last Jedi. Don't mind that at all. And if you want to see more of these videos, please feel free to subscribe. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you all next time. Have a good day.